Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. All right, today we have a very special review, and it is the review of the heavyweight champion of the Bronco trims. And there you go, 23 Bronco Raptor. So obviously you can see it's white. I don't need to tell you that, but what I will tell you is this has the graphics package on it, and the graphics really pop on the white. Doesn't really work on all the colors, but here it does work. So come on over a little closer, Becky, and let's start in the very front. And this is what I want to tell you. The grille here, the grille is not just for looks. This Bronco needs a lot of air. It needs a lot of air for cooling and induction. So what you're getting here is a wide open, all these big slots. You're getting the big block Ford letters. This lets a lot of air in. Now what Ford says is they've also channeled the air into the exact, and it's sealed, right? So it channels the air exactly where it needs to go. So you have air that goes up for induction. You have the air that goes across the radiator. And then of course below that, air goes through here, and that goes to the charge air cooler. So this grille here really does work for performance. And yes, it does look cool. Now we're going to talk about lights as we go around. We're going to kind of mix it up a little bit. But right here you have these amber markers. So when the Bronco is on, you'll see these three markers right here are lit up in their amber. Now that's because any vehicle that's wider than 80 inches, and this is coming in right about 86, it requires this for DOT reasons. Difference on the Bronco Raptor, you also have the amber ring and bars. So right here, you'll see the amber color versus the white in the, say, our Badlands, for example. Still have the front-facing camera. Now, the modular bumpers, it's the same as the base trim with different end caps. Now, here's something else. Right here, the rigid lights that you see here, this is actually, Ford calls this a fog light. And this is controlled by a fog light switch by the headlight switch. Now, this is an off-road light. This is controlled from the upfitter or the auxiliary switches. So there's a little bit different. These are supposed to be capped for on the road. And of course, off the road, take it off and control it with your auxiliary. Now, this is a aero deflector, so this is different as well. The Bronco Raptor is so high for aerodynamic reasons, and to get the MPG as high as they could, they had to work on the aerodynamics here, and so this aero deflector is for that reason. So it's not for any other reasons other than to try to make it go through the air a little bit easier. And so you'll see this is the silver here. That's this titanium look on the skid plates, the bash plates. You know, this thing, it's built like a tank, right? You know, Ford said, hey, whoever's going to get this Bronco is really going to work it, and they're going to play with it, and we need to protect all the vital components. Oil pan, diff, transmission pan, gas tank. So it's all covered there as well. So that's the front. You see the end cap here. You can actually remove this whole piece and the fog lights and the aero deflector if you're going to do some rock crawling and you need a lot of articulation. The front shocks are, they have internal reservoirs. The rear shocks have external reservoirs. Now this is a new upper and lower control arm. This is a forged, the upper control arm is forged and the lower is cast. And you see the upgraded rack and tie rod ends. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have complained about are the fender flares on the Bronco. Well, I have to tell you, when you see one in person, they don't look bad. I actually have never had an issue with them, and when you see them in person, it wins a lot more people over. It just says this vehicle is different, and it's not like our Badlands Sasquatch. So it's totally different. You know what it is when you see it coming down the road. If you miss the amber markers or the ring and bar, you definitely see the fender flare. So the shoes on this Bronco Raptor are BF Goodrich KO2s. Now you'll notice a lot of people are doing some heavy performance. They're doing all kinds of stuff, rock crawling, desert running, Baja racing, Ultra 4 type stuff. This is the tire that they're using. So what Ford has done is they fitted this Bronco with the tire needed for the performance that it's capable of. And you know, when we talk about suspension, upper and lower control arms, the Fox shocks, the active live valve, one of the things to keep in mind is the chassis on this. The T6 platform, but the actual chassis, the frame itself, has been reinforced. There's joust bumpers, there's secondary joust bumpers. Inside the frame has been reinforced in a few different spots. The rear shock towers are raised. The front shock towers are higher. This adds for the 13 inches of suspension travel that's in the front and the 14 that's in the rear. So obviously they had to have a lot of room, a lot of square footage for all this stuff to happen. When you see one of these Bronco Raptors articulating up on the rocks, you really get to see the flex and the articulation, the suspension that's there. I mean, it's pretty cool. It doesn't just look cool. And by the way, speaking of cool, this is the first vehicle with 37-inch tires from the factory. So in the rear of the Bronco, you'll notice that the gas cap is a little bit different door here. First of all, this door is a little bit shorter and you pull it out versus our regular Broncos. We have to push it in, it snaps back at you, and it's a little bit bigger. So they had to do that because obviously the fender flares come up into the quarter as well. So on the body panels on the Bronco Raptor, it's SMC, and that stands for sheet molded compound. So it's different than metal. It's not molded in color, so it is a painted product. All right, so in the rear of the Bronco Raptor, the tail lights, you'll notice, are a little bit different. So they stick further out this way, and what this is for the blind spot monitoring. It's versus it being down here in the quarter, it's up here. So as you're backing up, if it sees something coming your way, it alerts you inside. But the tail lights had to be larger because the larger spare tire, this giant 37-inch spare on the back. What happens is there's a certain distance back from the Bronco that you have to be able to see the tail lights. And so in order for Ford to meet that requirement, they actually had to stick further off the back of the Bronco. And so when they did that, they added this sensor here, and it just changed the entire design. So like you see the Bronco or the Raptor badging here on the bottom of the door, but when you see this from a mile away, you know it's a Bronco Raptor. Now, we talked about the marker lights in the front, the amber. There's a couple of ones we didn't talk about. On the rear of the Bronco Raptor, you'll notice, because it's over 8 inches wide, that you see this third brake light. These are your 3 red markers that you have to have per DOT regulations on the rear. So versus it being a single bulb, you have the 3 different ones here. And on the side of the mirrors, and we'll go up to that, you'll see there's one individual light. Front facing is amber, rear facing is red. So they did something pretty cool. They met the requirements. They put them somewhere that you can't take off because, you know, if they mount them to the doors, you can remove the doors, or the top, you can remove the top. They put on the mirrors. So this full-size 37-inch spare comes at a cost, and that cost is weight. So Ford had to reinforce the swing gate with this big brace right here. And what this does, this helps keep the door from bowing or buckling or just basically sagging so it doesn't close right. Now, what's pretty cool are these Bronco bolts right here. These are accessory ready. You could take these bolts out and you could actually add something here, gas tank, jugs, antennas, whatever. So this is pretty cool here. And they moved the black bucking horse on this case all the way over to the edge, so you still get the horse in there. It's still doing its thing, and you know when you see this, it's a Raptor. But the logo on the side, the spare, the third brake light, or the 3 lights in the third brake light, tells you it's a Bronco Raptor. Now, when you get around to the back here, we're getting ready to go up to the front and talk about the engine. Before we do that, you'll see that this has a tow package. Well, this Bronco can tow up to 4,500 pounds. Now, how they did that? Well, they have more engine, they have more bracing in the chassis. In particular, instead of the hitch being bolted to the first cross member on the back of the frame, it actually has 2 braces that run to the next cross member. So this hitch is supported in several different areas, therefore giving the Bronco Raptor a 4,500 pound towing capacity versus 3,500 on the standard Bronco. So here we are on the back, of course, and you see this back quarter, this big fender flare. It's great. You have this mud flap that comes over. Now, some people have talked about removing these right here. I wouldn't remove it. I think it looks good the way it is. And, you know, you're kind of helping the people behind you too, right? You know, keeping their windshields last as long as possible. But the KO2s, they're not going to kick as many rocks, I don't think, up as the Goodyears, but, you know, who knows. Now, you'll see on the back, this is the reservoir. The rear Fox shocks have the external reservoir, and that's what this is right here. So you can see this whole setup here, it's massive. And it's just the way it's mounted up in here, you have a lot of room, you have a lot of travel. But right here, as Becky pans out, you're going to notice how you have a tremendous amount of travel back. This is that 14 inches that Ford gives you. Now, when these are being manufactured at Michigan Assembly Plant, they had a height issue. They're too tall. And so what Ford had to do, Ford had to lower the shock perch in the back. So they had to basically they had to move the axle so that the Bronco would go through and it wouldn't impede the machinery. After it goes through manufacturing, it goes to the mod shop where Ford then moves the shock perch to the next bolt, and they basically lower the axle, which raises the Bronco. So that's how they're able to get this 14 inches of travel, the suspension that's here. That's how they're able to get it through manufacturing so that it didn't hit any of the robotics and everything fits. So in the back of the Bronco, you see the rear seats. It's similar. Now there's something here that's worth $1 million, but similar to the regular Bronco. But you'll notice this is the black leather, which is kind of rare here. But check this out. The infamous, the elusive rear cup holders. You gotta love it. So with marine grade vinyl, you're not gonna get this. So if that's a big deal for you and you're on the fence about every other thing, this may be what makes you decide to go to leather. You get that rear cup holder. Now, if you're gonna get it really dirty, you're gonna do heavy off-roading, you know the inside's gonna get trashed on it, you're gonna need to clean it up, marine grade vinyl will be your best option there. What you see right here, this is the B-bow. This is on the B-pillar. This is a brace. Now this Bronco has 2 extra braces that standard Bronco doesn't, the B-bow and the C-bow. Now on the B-bow, this is an aluminum brace and it's clad in plastic. And so when you take the top off the Bronco, you will have something directly over your head. But Ford did this, they said, because they wanted to increase the torsional rigidity of this Bronco, and they did that by adding these 2 braces and actually increased it to 50%. So 50% more rigidity into the frame. So for articulation, twisting, you're getting less of that. Also, you have more horsepower. You're going faster through the desert, bouncing around dirt roads. You want the stability there. So it's actually, not only does it look cool in the back, I mean, this one here is either way. The one in the back really looks cool, but it adds a lot of function to the Bronco and it equals to performance. So back into the front of the interior here, it's still black leather and it's still cool. But one thing that you're really starting to notice up is all of the code orange accents, right? So you see the code orange center in the steering wheel that helps you keep the center of the steering wheel oriented. When you're in Moab and you're in the dust and you're going 80 miles an hour, bouncing over stuff, you know which way's straight. But the orange stitching in the steering wheel, as well as the orange Bronco letters here on the dash, and you also have the code orange on the grab handles and also on the AC vents, as well as the goat mode dial. And speaking of goat mode, this Bronco has 7 of them, 7 goat modes. The 2 extra modes are Baja and towing. So remember, this Bronco tows 4,500 pounds. They actually give you a mode for towing, and also the Baja changes the suspension, the gearing, how far it carries the RPMs and lag, or how long it keeps the turbo spooled up so you have that instant horsepower. All of that's done in the goat mode. Now, like every other Bronco, you can manually put it in 4 low, 4 high, hit whatever hero switch that you want. You can configure it whichever way you want. In this case here, if you hit the goat modes, this Bronco, the Raptor, is so smart. It's working with a lot of different suspension components, so it's really best probably to use it in one of the goat modes. When you look in the front of the Bronco again, it's great. You have the upfitter switches, the auxiliary switches right here. And by the way, it's going to come standard in this Bronco, but any other Bronco trim, you really just need to go ahead and order those if you're ordering your Bronco, because it's so much cheaper to order them from Ford and let them do it versus trying to do it aftermarket. Now, what are those for? Those are for adding anything, lights, winch, whatever you want to add, ditch lights, lights into the grill, the bumper, whatever you want to add, you can control it right there. So pretty cool. Now, one thing we didn't talk about was the steps on the side. So you have side steps on this, and I want to kneel down so we can see it a little bit better. So we have the step right here, and we have the rock rail. So on the side step of the Bronco Raptor, it's pretty cool here. It looks like a 2-person job, right? Because you can imagine something falling, you're trying to unbolt it and bolt it back up. You don't have that problem here. This step on the side will actually connect and hang to the rock rail as you take the 6 Bronco bolts out with the toolkit that they give you. So you take out these 2 bolts, the 2 here and the 2 in the front, and then you remove the steps. Now you want to remove this for heavy off-roading, rock crawling, things like that where you want more ground clearance. But in everyday driving, this Bronco is so tall, you really need help getting in. And so they don't look bad. They look pretty cool. And the fact that you can take them off easily is what you really want to do. This is a removable panel. What Ford says is a lot of the rocks that are going to get kicked up from the front are typically going to impact this area right here. So this is a smooth material right here. This is, you have these lines in them, and it's removable. So you can imagine if this was all smooth or even painted, you could see all the rock dings and the chips and the impact points right here. With adding these lines in here, you see less of that, or supposed to see less of that. But the idea is that if this gets beat up, this is removable. Now, one thing I'm not a fan of painting these so it's all the same color. You know this sticking out is going to grab something if you're going off-roading. When you paint these fender flares, you stand more of a chance of seeing wherever you scrape them, rock impacts or anything like that. So I like the color that they are, and also I like the fact that we can remove this panel if it gets beat up, change it out, and who knows what aftermarket will do here. I'm sure there's somebody brewing something up for this right now. All right, so we talked about tow package, the suspension, the tires, the frame, everything. The most important part we're going to save for last, and that's the engine. Let's go take a look. All right, so the most important part of the Bronco, well, let's say equally to the suspension, is the engine. And something when you're going to go look at the engine, check this out. Now this is just like heaven. It's just smooth. You see how the top goes up? Because Ford added the hood struts, which we need to add to our Bronco. So you have the hood struts here. It makes it so much easier. You get rid of the prop arm in the front. It's pretty cool. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty here. So what we have, this is technically called a snorkel. I know it's not the one you think sticking up, but this is where air enters the air cleaner or the air box. So if you notice, if you have a Bronco now, whether it's a 2.3 or 2.7, you'll know that this area is a lot wider than what you currently have. Now, Becky can show you up here, just if you didn't know, the area right here that you see these slots here, you also see it over here. This is where your induction air comes in from this side and it comes in from here and it mixes in this channel. If you ever get water over here, the water will actually drop down through these slots and then allow just air to go into the air box. Now the air box on this is a little bit larger. What Ford says is they've been able to help create the 418 horsepower and 440 feet-pounds of torque in this engine by adding a lot more air. And how they did that was they reduced the induction losses by 50%. Now this is the larger charge pipes. And also if you have a Bronco, you'll notice a 2.7, for example, you'll know you have a Y fitting right here. So you have both turbos dumping into one charge pipe going into the intercooler in one line. The Bronco Raptor 3.0, and this is still a nano twin turbo V6 by the way, it has the larger charge pipes, which dumps into the intercooler in two individual ports. Goes through the intercooler or the charge air cooler, which is located right back here, and then that cooled air goes into this larger charge pipe right into the throttle body. A lot more air is being moved in this engine. Ford also says they've been able to cut down on the exhaust losses by 33%. So basically, you get more air into the engine, through the turbos, and out of the exhaust a lot better. So this is also a true dual exhaust system. So on the 3.0 in the Bronco Raptor, this is your oil cooler right here. And if you notice, if you have a 2.7, you're going to notice something that looks like that mounted on this side of the engine over here. Well, this one doesn't have it. That is called a hot gas recirculation system. Ford did away with that on the 3.0. I don't know the benefits and what they were trying to accomplish. The hot gas recirculation basically just cuts down on oxygen in the cylinder, which lowers the cylinder temperature slightly. You still get the combustion, but it's less heat, for example. So it's supposed to help with all sorts of stuff in the engine. I don't know what they did in this one, but apparently they don't feel the need for it, and it does make a lot of horsepower. 418 at 440 feet-pounds of torque. That's nothing to joke about. One of the last things that we saved here was the louvers in the hood of the Bronco. Now you'll notice that you see this big raised portion right here in the center of the hood. These are actually active louvers. So when we raise the hood, you'll notice that you have these holes cut here, 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 here. This is where air actually makes it underneath that louver on top, for a lack of a better term, and it actually gets rid of the air actively. As your fan's pulling air across the radiator, that's somewhere for that heat to go. Also, as you're driving, more air is going across the radiator, more air is going to pass out. Now, this right here, one of the coolest looks on the outside of the Bronco Raptor are these louvers right here. Now these are passive. Now what that means is the fan and engine heat is not going to blow any air out of here. This is when you're driving. You get that aerodynamic sort of a vacuum, for example, but passive vents basically move air when the Bronco is moving down the road, versus heat will come out of the louver on top of the hood at all times. So it is another way to get rid of the heat that this 3.0 is cranking out underneath the hood. Like I said, it's strong. It's a lot stronger than the standard Bronco. There's going to be more heat for that whole process, and you need to get rid of it. All right, we didn't talk about the transmission. This is a 10R60 10-speed automatic. You can only get this Bronco with the automatic. So let's crank this thing up and see what it sounds like. Nice. You hear the door chime, you hear all that going. One of the things I hear right off the bat is it's got a growl to it. I don't know what mode it's in right now. I guess we could look at that, and the hood's ajar. We know that. Vehicle is on, doors ajar, hood's ajar. All right, now we've got all the alerts and all the bells and whistles out of the way. So I don't know if Becky can see, but this digital screen here, this cluster, it's so much nicer than what we have in the standard Bronco. You know, I really like, you have your gear position over here, so that's clearly displayed. The tack, I really like how the tack looks. Temperature, oil pressure, boost. This is your boost or vacuum gauge. So this actually tells you vacuum as well as boost, and then the fuel. And I'm sure the fuel gauge is probably the one that moves the most in this. And then you have your speed over here, a few different things. We have auto start stop deactivated. We said okay. And you can hear the engine idle down. The steering wheel is a lot bigger in diameter. It's a nicer fit on your hand. You know, it feels really good. You also have the paddle shifters. These are the magnesium paddle shifters, and they're large enough to actually use. So you can imagine you're driving, you're holding the wheel. They're right here at the fingertips. Good placement. Good job Ford on that. I mean, it's just feels really good. The AC's kicking in here right now. I can actually feel it. And you have your hero switches. So we have stay bar disconnect, front and rear locker, trail turn assist, traction control, and emergency flashers. Now, this is not my Bronco. There is something that you can do with the traction control. If you hold that button down, it takes everything off completely. It's kind of cool on that. But we're not going to mess with the programming because it's not mine. But you know, when you sit in here, it feels like a Bronco until you grab the steering wheel, like your traditional Bronco. That's when you notice it's something different. The paddle shifters, there's a lot more buttons on the steering wheel as well, and also that digital cluster, that says it all. I'm trying to feel if there's anything else. You know, you look down, you see Ford Performance. If you forgot what you were in, there it is again. The growl when it cranks up, totally different than the 2.7. Now the 3.0 is very closely related to the 2.7, both V6s, both Nano family, both twin turbos. But this one here is moving a lot more air, and that's part of that exhaust, that dual exhaust. You're just hearing it. You're hearing all the cylinders fire. It's pretty rich. So on your exhaust, you can see right here, you have the exhaust, you have normal, you have sport, you have Baja, and quiet. So if you're cruising in the neighborhood early in the morning, late at night, quiet mode's always nice for the neighbors. But we're going to go back to normal. So you can change the suspension, you can change the exhaust sound. All right, so on the armrest, you see the stitching right here really makes it a little bit different. Also, Raptor is written in there. You'll notice this Bronco Raptor, got to say the Raptor in there, has the carbon fiber package as well. So you can see you've got the carbon fiber here, you have the American flag there, here's the code orange stitching again, and the code orange around the goat mode dial. And you'll see the carbon fiber over here on the grab handle. You'll see this is all real carbon fiber, as well as if you go up to the steering wheel, Becky will show you on the bottom of the steering wheel, you have carbon fiber here where it says Bronco, or where it says Raptor in this case. So I have to tell you, my opinion of the Bronco Raptor, we've seen them. I've done a review before, pre-production, but this is the first privately owned Bronco Raptor that I have personally seen and been able to review and touch and crank up. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it really is. Everything from small things like the hood struts, which you can add to your Bronco, to the major things, the suspension, the reinforced frame, or the 3.0 with 418 horsepower, 440 feet-pounds of torque. The leather interior, the Raptor written everywhere, the code orange stitching. I mean, you know, the braces for the top, the Bebo and the Cibo, which we're going to go look at in the back. That'll be the last thing we look at. All of this stuff here adds up to says, yes, it's a Bronco Raptor. It's built for performance. And Ford, they knocked it out of the park on this. So if you're watching at Ford right now, great job on this one. I can't wait to get mine. You see Ford Performance written in here. You can imagine when the top is off, this really looks sharp going down the road, and you see this bracing, see Ford Performance. Kind of hard to tell in this lighting right here. Something else that I noticed on this rubber mat, if you'll notice that on the other rubber mats, you have a horse that is smooth or kind of down into the mat. This has the raised gray bucking horse like you would see on the rubber mat in the rear. So, you know, I've got to tell you, back here, it's like just about every other Bronco except for the SIBO and except for this mat. This is one thing that's really cool. When you're sitting in the Bronco driving down the road, you just want to smile even more. When you look in the rearview mirror, Raptor is written backwards here, and the reason why they did that, so when you look in the rearview mirror, it spells Raptor out properly. So there you go. This is our walk around and review of the 23 Ford Bronco Raptor. You can tell the white with the graphics really looks sharp. I've got to tell you, seeing one in person, touching it, cranking it up, listening to the sounds, it is really cool. We've seen them at Supercell. I saw one in Detroit when we went for Woodward Dream Cruise. Something different about this. This is someone's probably own Bronco Raptor. It's just a little bit of difference here. When you crank it up, this is one that you can drive down the road. You can enjoy, you can go off-roading, you can have real fun with this thing. It's a beast. If you liked this video, if you found it informative, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And I'd like to thank Andrea for letting us review his Bronco Raptor. It's so cool. We're not jealous, we're not envious, we are happy. We are happy for him. And one of these days, we're going to get ours. All right, everyone, see ya.